Asteroid of fear.
No pressure.
Yeah, it was a long week. I've had like a little mini meltdown like a week ago. And I quit drinking two years ago, and um my mood got a little yeah, I just kind of lost my cool verbally, and
Yeah.
I couldn't blame it on the alcohol. And so
You
I had
talking
to
about the meltdown?
yeah, had to check
Yeah.
in with the PCP, and uh had a therapist session yesterday. And
What happened? What was the meltdown?
oh, just I think just being tired, frustrated at the world. I just kind of, when I opened the door to my car, I had a bag and I kind of threw it in there.
Yeah.
And, you know, and, yeah, my daughter, when she saw that, she just was like, she was tired too and frustrated, and, it scared her. And I was like, oh, I just felt like a piece of shit. And, that whole man thing of it's easy to dwell on the fact that you're human when you're raised an OCD, people pleasing perfectionist,
Yeah.
um, and you have a less than perfect moment. It's easy to show grace to others, but not to self, um,
Always.
due to low self worth. And, and yeah, it's easy for me to get stuck for like a day or day and a half. And, and in that stuckness, probably the one thing I realized was okay, it wasn't because of the alcohol. You got some work to do, and I had this therapist kind of lined up, and I really was just like, it's time, like, like now, quit fucking around,
Yeah.
quit avoiding, quit delaying. There's no perfect time. Um, yeah. So,
It's interesting you talking about that. How we can show grace to others, but sometimes it's so difficult for ourselves. I was in a meditation class one time, and a gentleman in the class shared with me this story about losing his job, and he reached out to a friend of his, and his friend was like, "Well, of course you lost that job. You should have never had it in the first place. You're kind of worthless. We're a imposter. You aren't really qualified for the job of, who would be surprised that you would lose a job that you shouldn't have never had in the first place." And then you find out that the friend is actually his own internal voice speaking to himself.
mm,
And then you think, I would never let anyone else speak to me that way. Like, that's not a friend. That's not
no,
a good person you would reach out to, and they would come back to you and tell you that you're a failure, or you never deserved it in the first place, or of course you got fired. Like, you would never, ever, ever keep a friend like that. Yet you allow yourself to speak to yourself like that all the time.
yeah, I know.
It's like you're not being a friend to yourself when you do that.
And self love is, I've learned through coaching and whatnot that I suffer from low self worth. There was a time as a young man where I grew up in a very conservative Bible Belt Christian town, and I had an affair with a married person um, as a young man, and that even though, well, growing up in a Christian conservative place, it was kind of weird because I didn't go to church all the time, and a lot of people did go to church, but always my discrepancy was with it was how it looked, in that a lot of people would be out fornicating and pastor party drinking and all that, and then they thought, well, it's okay because you show up to church on Sunday. And I was kind of the opposite. I didn't participate in any of that stuff, but didn't go to church. And I was like, you can't tell, you know, just showing up doesn't mean faith.
Yep.
And then I end up having an affair, which I thought I could never be forgiven for. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm surely going to hell for this.
Mm.
And then I just became reckless and kind of lived my life accordingly. Um, in that, I wouldn't say that like I was suicidal, but I kind of had that like I didn't care, throw caution to the wind, and you just, whether it's partying, experimenting, putting yourself in situations, um, all that. And yeah, yeah, it was kind of like meeting with the therapist and kind of giving her some of that, this encapsulated broad story of going, man, you got a lot to fucking unpack. And, it's like, well, what's your goal with this? I'm like, well, it looks like, you know, whether you want to call it a room or a three-piece luggage set,
Mm.
that's a hot mess. We need to unpack it, Marie Kondo that shit, and put it back nice and neat, and
Yeah.
throw away what doesn't serve me. I'm 49. Our youngest daughter at 11, like the generational family trauma bullshit that's been passed on for two generations, three generations stops here. I've made that decision. So yeah, that's
It's
kind of
so
where
important. It's so
we're at.
important that we break those generational cycles and provide a different example for our kids. But yeah, man, if you're not being a friend to yourself, if you're not being good to yourself, you can speak all the words and say all the right things, but our kids know. They know based on our actions. They know if we're loving ourselves, or if we're treating ourselves like assholes,
Yeah,
and they they do things based off of our behavior. They model our behavior, not our words. And it's cliches, but it's true.
I
If
say
we
that all the
wanted,
time because
yeah,
I have the podcast. I go, the podcast is going to be like for when she's ready to hear it. But I've
yeah,
realized, like, especially when I quit drinking, I've also lost 64 pounds. I'm like,
nice.
that's what's showing her. But
Yes.
also with this meltdown, um, I openly told her, like, yes, I'm meeting with a therapist.
Yeah, good.
Because, she's had her own overwhelm and stuff, and we
Yeah.
want to encourage her to potentially be open to talking to somebody as she ages
Hmm.
and whatnot. And
Definitely.
I know that I have to do. It's not about saying, it's about doing. It's about leading the charge. And so whether it's she's seen me stop drinking for 2 years, she's seen me lose 64 pounds. Um, and now, how I recover from that little thing. She gets to see that, and that's
Yes.
what's important, and that's been the driver. I mean, as low as I got, as low as that the friend I shouldn't keep around. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Did
I
you?
might have gave him a couple of good licks, but he needs to get the fuck out of my circle,
Yeah.
out of my
Yeah.
personal space, if you know
Yeah.
what I mean.
Absolutely. Create some boundaries around that dick. Say no. I'm
How
not.
funny is it? My name is Richard.
Exactly. Not that dick.
Yeah,
Richard, yes, but that dick, no.
yeah.
Hey, when that happened with your daughter, so I have a 12-year-old daughter myself, and I always make sure to, if I mess up, I always make sure to apologize, because that's part of that generational stuff. My parents, no matter what I don't think they apologized to me once ever, and that's a huge thing to have that kind of vulnerability and openness with your kids to apologize when you screw up. I think that's a huge one. Did you apologize?
Absolutely.
Hell
She
yeah.
was sitting in the recliner and kind of like this. I was in front of her. I got on my knees to be level with her and I just said, like I know I messed up. I know
Yeah.
I lost my temper and I quit drinking 2 years ago and I can't blame it on that. So I go, Daddy doesn't know what to do or how to feel because I go, other than I know I have some work to do and this is what I plan on doing. And um, yeah. And now she's kind of seen me take the actions. And so,
All right. Can you take, like, everything you've said to me is pretty amazing from my point of view. All of the things you're doing to improve your life, what you said about your drinking,
Hmm.
about losing weight, about, hey, you know what, none of us are perfect and we have those moments, but in response to that, you are talking to a therapist, you got down at eye level with your daughter and you apologize. Like these are huge things to celebrate and for you to feel really, really awesome about. So I would just like to take a second to commend you for all of that. You are not really good clearly at being the friend to yourself and being your own cheerleader, but I'm going to ask you to please like take credit for those things and celebrate a few huge wins, because those of us who are perfectionists and a little OCD
Hmm.
and are critical on ourselves seem to go there. So be that friend for yourself, be that dick, and be like, hell yeah, I've crushed it on quitting drinking. I've crushed it on losing all the weight. I've crushed it on modeling great behavior for my daughter when I do make a mistake, because none of us are perfect. And she's gonna screw up. So then it's like, okay, I'm gonna screw up at some point in the future. Look at how my dad handled it. He went out, he figured out what was wrong, he talked about it, he apologized to me, and then made the actions necessary to grow from it. That's the good shit right there, man.
Yeah.
Congrats.
And Friday, my unfiltered Friday, I even that was the whole episode. And I felt like it was important to put it out there. Like,
Good.
hey, I'm not perfect. I'm human, but
Yep.
I'm all I have a private accountability group. And if I can't call myself out, who the fuck am I to have a private accountability group?
That's what's up. Hell yeah.
Well, enough about me. Let's get on to you because, interestingly enough, I'm gonna tell the world a secret and you. You know, mentally, I was like unsure if I was gonna do this at 4:30 this morning, and I was like, something came over me, and I said, nope, the universe. There's a reason this guy's on your schedule. You need to honor it, even if it's selfish, and you need to hear it. And this happened once in August or somewhere and I had this interview with Matt O'Neill, Good Mood Matt, and he kind of like you, he just had some of the things I needed to hear on that day. And so even though it was the interviews about you as the guest, I was a little selfish today and that I said, maybe this guy's got the words I need to hear today and I need to do this. And
Hell yeah.
that's what
Awesome.
I was like, I'm gonna go get a walk in, boost
Yeah,
the endorphins, got a shower, and here we
absolutely.
are, and I'm excited to hear about your journey. And that way, myself and the audience, if they're in this place or they're coming off of a meltdown like myself, they can have um, a few things and some perspective because I think opening these conversations and offering perspective is a way to change the world. That's why we do the podcast, is because I want people to know you're not the only one, you're not alone, and
Yes.
somebody else has gone through this. And if we can take a little bit different perspective, or maybe you've just never looked at it that way, um, and if that gets you to where you need to go, and the one person um, who needs to hear it today hears it, it might be me. And so, yeah, I love it. I'm excited. So,
Awesome.
um, where, hold on. Well, actually, everyone, we've done this before because one time I had this great conversation and did the intro at the end. But
Yeah.
in case you guys forgot, you are listening to the Men of the House podcast. So welcome and thank you for spending your time with me. And today we're going to speak with Jam Alker. And I'm super excited because I love music. He was a musician. I'm 2 years no drinking and working on entrepreneurship and my wellness. And you have all those things: entrepreneur, music, and wellness visionary. So I'm excited to kind of get your story. And I know, kind of like my story during the pandemic, things changed a little bit. And I look back at it and I am so grateful. It was a blessing to have gotten laid off. And um, yeah, I get to be the dad and father I want. And I get to be present for as much as I need. And I get to say yes
Yes.
and no to the things I want to and don't want to. And I love that. Even if it's less money, even if you have to do some, financial jujitsu and perspective jujitsu, um, in the mind, um, it works out. But how's it going today?
I am fantastic, and yeah, I don't care about the intro. We're already vibing and talking, and this is what it's about. That's the stuff. You put that out there, people are going to connect to that far more than probably any of the other stuff that might be more rehearsed that we would talked about. That's the true vulnerable nature of things where we actually get to know each other, connect, and help others, which was what I think it's all about. So I'm very happy to be here and be able to share whatever I can with you today, my friend.
Awesome. So where'd you grow up? And I guess music was kind of your first thing, or we'll find out, was it? Where'd you grow up? Kind of how'd you grow up? Because I think that always leads into some of our childhood issues as we talked about these generational curses. And give us kind of the leading up into music.
Yeah, so I grew up everywhere. I was born in England. My family emigrated to the States when I was 3.
Oh, wow.
My parents separated when I was 5 in a very violent sort of manner. A lot of violence, a lot of going back and forth between parents. A lot of them caring less about me as their child than them and their own behaviors and lives that they've grown up in. Which again was I've fully forgiven them both because I believe they did the best they did the best they could do based off of the traumas that they grew up with. And so I have nothing but love and forgiveness for both of them. They've passed away. But the reality is that one of my earliest memories is my dad stumbling towards me and there's blood pouring down his face. And it's because my mom had just broken a whiskey bottle over his head to stop a violent advance. And fast forward to my next memory, which was within, days of that, is in a car driving to Las Vegas with my brother and my mom because she just had left my father. And I don't know how long it was until I saw him again. She took a job as a cocktail waitress in Las Vegas. And, this was, I'm an old man. This is back in the 70s. And at 5 years old, 6 years old, I'm literally, again, it's the 70s, so it's a different time, but I'm walking the streets, roaming around, bored by myself, walking up and down the strip and on my own at 5, 6 years old. Family completely ripped apart, not knowing what to do. And when you're 5, 6 years old, you have to create a set of coping skills to some deep trauma. You're not capable. You're not equipped at that age to create healthy coping skills. But you have to create some sort of coping skills. And so I buried a lot of things, and those things don't stay buried. They manifest in one way or another. And as I got older, they manifested through more pain and anger and isolation.
The irony of you're in Vegas and you bury, that's your
Yeah,
coping mechanism.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm 6
Like
years old. I'm
the
7 years
body's in the
old.
desert.
Yeah, absolutely. 100, very much so.
Hmm.
Excellent metaphor uh, with that there. And so that continued on, and I moved around. I never went to one school for more than 2 years growing up. Make friends, go to the next place, make friends, go to the next place. Very, very difficult. In high school, I found music was a way to connect. I finished up my last 2 years of high school in the Chicago suburbs. I'm still in Chicago now, and found it was a way to connect. I was creative. I loved to write and play, but it was also cool because it was a way that I could get chicks to pay attention to me. And always been a bit of a showman.
Hmm.
Loved being on stage, and so it was something that made me feel at home, and I was pretty good at it. Still had all the underlying issues of the pain and the isolation and the trauma that weren't being dealt with, but I was partying and finished high school, moved down into the city, started my first band. Managed the band, did all the business stuff, was always a bit of an entrepreneur as well as a starving artist, but that did okay. And through my 20s, I did that. I did a lot of partying. None of it
Hmm.
was stuff that I didn't feel I could handle at the time. I was able to manage
Yeah.
through my 20s, and did some touring, but had the fun. Did the rock star life. Did all of that, but also was an entrepreneur. I had a recording studio, I had a record label. At one point, I thought it'd be fun to rehab old buildings. I bought a building, I rehabbed it. That turned into a real estate development business. So I was playing music and being an entrepreneur and partying And in that course of all of that, and again, still having all of the underlying trauma that was just brewing beneath the surface,
Mm-hmm.
would manifest with anger, would manifest with anxiety. But then I was introduced to opiates. I was partying. I went out to play at an open mic. I
Mm-hmm.
met a girl there in my late 20s, early 30s. She introduced me to heroin. And it was a moment in which um, something happened. I've often said when people have asked me to explain what heroin feels like, the best I've ever heard it is it feels like a mother's love. And through a great deal of my childhood, I was not with my mom. I had her for a few years when I was in Vegas, but at 8 years old, she had married another violent alcoholic and sent me and my brother to go live with my father, who was also a violent alcoholic. And I didn't see my mom again until I was 15.
Wow.
So a good part of my childhood was without my mom. So, you can also wrap those issues of desperately wanting a female's love into the rock star, into the there's never enough girls that could possibly like me. There's never enough chicks after the show. There's never enough, applause or autographs or anything. Never enough, never enough. And then I find heroin, and it was the first time since
It
I
was
was
enough.
5 years old that I finally felt that I could rest. I finally felt like loved. I felt good. I
Well,
felt great.
so not to gloss over this. So I'm 49. Um, and it's kind of taboo, but um, I had an uncle who ended up in the early 90s with HIV from uh IV heroin use.
Yeah.
Um, and his thing was he had gotten shipped to Germany and married a German and stayed over there. And it was big over there, I guess, in the 70s. But how did you said you got this girl introduced it to you? Did you smoke it, snort it, or shoot it? And because I've never done heroin, but that was kind of the one I avoided because well, partially because my uncle, who passed away from it, and the other part was because I felt that I wouldn't be able to control it,
Right.
especially if I went IV.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the big thing when, I mean, I dabbled in LSD and, multiple things, but that was the one thing I never did because I was like, I didn't think I could walk away from it. And, there's different levels of how people try it. And it kind of, because it's going to tell about your intensity of personality if somebody's their first time is straight to injection. So how'd you try it?
Yeah. So that's a really good point, and good for you that you were that self-aware to know what would happen. My problem is that up until then I had done everything else and none of it had taken me down, and I had a huge ego thinking, oh, I can party with anything. If I could party with cocaine or with alcohol or
Mm-hmm.
with hallucinogenics or anything else, then I should be able to with this as well. Knowing the dangers, but this was my ego speaking. So the first time that I was introduced to it, it was a powder, so I snorted it the first time that I tried it.
Okay.
And it was honestly at that moment, it was the best feeling that I had probably ever felt in my life. The problem is that it is making a deal with the devil, because you get that feeling once, you never get it again, and you chase it and you chase it and you chase it, and every time it's just a little bit less. And you hope the next one's going to take you there, and it's just a little bit less, and a little bit less, and a little bit less. And at that point, you've sold your soul looking for this thing up here that you will never find again. And the come down is hellacious.
Now, okay, so you try it there, your late 20s, early 30s, you're doing your music thing.
Yeah.
Um, how does it progress and how bad does it get? Do you graduate from snorting to shooting? And how does this impact your music and your businesses as it progresses? And do you
Sure.
notice it?
Oh yeah. So I was playing music locally at that point, but I also had a business that I was running, and it was snorting. Now I shot for a short period of time, but it didn't make that big of a difference. I felt in terms of
The
the
feeling.
high, but the but I was very much closeted with it. I kept it to myself. I was able to, for the most part, maintain relationships for many years, and so it was a lot easier to be able to hide it and continue to be one of the few somewhat functional heroin addicts. It was easier to do that. It would have been almost impossible continuing to shoot
Yeah.
with track marks and all the issues with that. So snorting, I was able to hide it from people for a number of years. And in the beginning, it was like I was Superman. I could do it. It gave me all sorts of energy. I naturally have low levels of dopamine, and
Hmm.
so it raises your dopamine so much that it was something that actually gave me a ton of insight into different aspects of my brain that I wasn't really finding elsewhere. So there were a lot of you know cheap benefits and ones that were very much fleeting. But in the beginning, it was something that actually this is great. I feel amazing. I'm able to work more. I'm able to stay up longer. I was managing it until I wasn't, but it wasn't long before I stopped being interested in music and I wasn't playing as much. And I stopped being as interested in running my business.
You know what's
Yeah.
interesting is you said the dopamine,
Yeah.
and like alcohol kind of redlines it too, but um interestingly enough, like on my mom's side, grandparents Alzheimer's. On my dad's side, my dad has Parkinson's, my grandfather had Parkinson's, and I
Mm.
think Parkinson's is a result of low dopamine,
Yeah.
which means I feel like my dad, myself, people who are addict like
Hmm.
are we're gonna end up with Parkinson's or something. And so I take creatine daily, but all
Great.
that kind of stuff, it's a worry that to know that that's kind of a low dopamine issue, and those of us who chase the dopamine now get to worry about our later lives.
Yeah, those are all huge issues, and again, another reason why it's really good that you didn't get into opiates with the awareness that you probably have low levels of dopamine. I mean, the good news is with the wellness business that I'm into now and all of the
Hmm.
work that I've done, I have found so many natural ways to be able to upregulate my dopamine that it's not even an issue for me anymore. So there's exciting stuff out there, and you named one for cognitive benefits of creatine are huge. So anybody who's over 30, 35 should be taking 5 grams of creatine a day for the rest of their lives. That's one of when I talk to people about supplements. That is a baseline. Besides a strong multivitamin, a strong mineral complex, the next thing that I tell everyone is that 5 grams of creatine a day should be essential part of your wellness routine.
I put it in my coffee with collagen, either Bubs or First Form
There
salted
you go.
caramel. One scoop of creatine, and I'll do a little
Boom.
Fairlife for a little extra
Yeah.
protein.
Same.
But I'm meaning to go. Sometimes I like it when I can make it by Sprouts. I'll get a layered superfood creamer with some functional mushrooms in it, a little almond
Okay.
coconut because it's low on the calories.
Mm.
But I like to give my daughter Fairlife because of the extra protein. So I just a little quarter cup of that, little extra
Boom.
protein shot, and you're getting all the benefits first thing in the morning.
Preach.
Yes.
Preach. Yeah,
That's
man.
that's one of the helpful things as part of
Yeah.
my routine. And I can tell you, as part of the meltdown and coming off of that and the little bit of depression I had today, was the first day I had coffee in 2 days. I mean, I was kind of in a state where I didn't want coffee. I didn't want nothing.
Mm.
Yeah. Which is kind of wild when you don't want your morning routine, but yeah, I enjoyed it today. It was kind of
Good.
a real good enjoyment. But how did so you lost interest in music, lost interest in kind of running your business. What is life like, and what's the catalyst to eventually say something's got to stop, whether it's the music, the business, or the heroin? And are you in relationships? Do you have any children? Yeah, and when I say what does life look like is kind of the complexity of it where you're at because when you make a decision to change what's going on, there's usually something in there that you either got to do it or don't, you know?
Yes, there was a huge moment of clarity. A lot of people like to say, what is your bottom? And I don't like to put it in terms of a bottom because that kind of assumes it's a destination that someone has to reach. And I don't like to look at it that way. My moment of clarity came when I found out that I was going to be a father. My beautiful 12-year-old daughter now found out that she was in utero.
Mm.
And I was like, amazing. This is definitely going to be the thing. There's no way that I will keep using heroin, even though every other excuse I had made, every other line in the sand, I had crossed in no time, but this was going to be the thing. So she was born, and I had stopped just before she was born, went through a bunch of withdrawals and all the horrible stuff as she was born, and in the hospital, came out of it, had stopped using, but had gained literally zero of the coping skills necessary to maintain a clean and sober life. And so she was born. I had 2 weeks off from the job I was working at this point. I was an employee for a construction company. I'd lost my business. I was not playing music. And similar to what you were talking about, I'm now at 54 years old. I'm about 185 pounds and I have a six pack. And very few people in their 50s have a six pack. This was when I was 40 or early 40, I guess 42 at this point, and I was 250 pounds. So to what the story you just told about the weight loss.
I was
So
213 at 5'5", and
yeah,
I was 148 this morning. That's where I
nice.
should be, you know?
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
So I was obese. I was addicted. I had lost everything except this job that was
they
just
make
paying
obese
bills.
construction workers?
Yeah. So my daughter's born. I have 2 weeks off the week before she's born, or the few days before, and then a bit of time after she's born. And then I go back to work, and all of a sudden, all of the stresses. I'm out of the cocoon of the child's birth. I'm back at work, and I have to go back to the stressful life that, again, I've built absolutely no coping skills of how to live. Since day one of having this job, I had been a daily heroin user at this point for about 10 years. And I went back to the job with no coping skills. I went in on the Monday, stayed there for about an hour, left, said I had to go look at jobs, went home, went to bed, freaking out, clean, but no coping skills. Did that again on Tuesday, left, Wednesday, left, Thursday, I couldn't mess around anymore. I had to get to work. I sat at my desk and I honestly felt like I'm just going to jump out the window. I can't do this. I can't do this. I didn't know how to do my job without being high. I didn't know how to deal with stress. I didn't know how to live anymore. I had no coping skills whatsoever that didn't include getting high. That's where I was with an infant at home. And so I went out to my car. Among my other addictions at the time was cigarettes. I sat in the car smoking cigarettes and was like, I can't use, I can't go, I can't do this, I can't do this. But then that voice came up in my head and was like, Jam, listen, you have a kid now. You can't lose this job. And the only way you know how to do this job is if you get high. We got to go. We got to go. You got to get high. Like, this is the only thing. And I sat there pounding the steering wheel, crying, screaming in the car, no, I can't do this, I can't do this. And that voice kept coming back. And eventually that voice was like, yeah, that's really the only option you have right now is to go back to the west side of Chicago and buy a bag, because if you lose this job, there's no way you can take care of your child. And in that moment, that voice won. And I drove and I came back. And that was my moment of clarity, that there were no more lines in the sand. There was nothing else. I didn't know how to do it. I couldn't figure it out on my own. I had tried. If this was not the thing that was going to get me to stop, there was nothing that under my own power that was going to be able to. So I started to make a plan that would allow me to somehow go out and reach some help. And it took over a year from that moment where I continued using, where I figured out how to put some money to the side for a safety net, and got myself into a position. I started to see a therapist who was an addiction counselor. He convinced me that part of it had to be going to treatment. To his credit, he continued to work with me while I was still using to break down my barriers. We created a plan. And, you know, when my child was a toddler, the pieces came together to the point where I quit my job. The next day, I checked into a treatment center, October 13th, 2014. Checked in and fully surrendered. It was not a one knee surrender where it was like, yeah, maybe I can still do this or that. It was 100% on both knees, surrender. I can't figure this stuff out on my own. I don't know what I'm doing. I need to shut the fuck up and listen to the adults and the people who have done this. It was a 12-step program. I submitted myself completely to the program. I did everything they told me to do. They asked me to open myself up to some sort of a spiritual experience. One of the really beautiful things that I did is I brought my guitar with me. I dusted it off, took it out of the closet after many years of it just sitting there, and I took it to treatment with me because I thought I'd be sitting there bored for 30 days. To my counselor's credit, God love her, Nanette completely changed the trajectory of my life. She said I started to pick up the guitar and was noodling around with things. She asked me if I was a writer. I said I was. She asked me if I wanted to do my treatment work as songwriting rather than just filling out treatment pamphlets and, writing about your triggers and all of these different things. And so rather than filling out pamphlets for my treatment work, which have taken an hour or two and I would have moved on to the next thing, instead I brought my guitar and I started to write. And I wrote about those traumas. I wrote about those things that were holding me back. I wrote about my ego. I wrote about finally surrendering. And I opened myself up to that spiritual experience. And I've said before that I felt like an old radio that was finally tuned into the right frequency. And I opened up, and that spiritual experience expressed it to me and through me creatively. And I started to write in a way that I had never written before. I wrote 4 songs while I was in treatment. I came out of treatment. I shared the music with the folks in my treatment group. They all connected with it. Some of them started writing themselves as a result of that. When I left treatment, I continued writing and made an album out of it, shared that online with the recovery community, and it blew up, and it started my next career coming out of treatment, using treatment as a way to finally work through those traumas, using music as a way to work through those traumas, and listening and shutting up and doing what I was told and following the instructions of the people who had been successful before me completely changed my life. I'm not better than anyone who has gone to treatment 10 times where I only went once, but I only went when I was finally truly ready to go and do what it is that they told me to do. And that's really how I changed my life.
What was the detox like in treatment as compared to your self detox you did before your daughter was born?
Horrible. It was really, really no different. It was just writhing around for 4 or 5 days in my own bed versus writhing around for 4 or 5 days in a bed with a plastic mattress.
Can you any advice, tips, tricks, hope, words of affirmation of anybody who is gonna have to go through a detox or DTs of, maybe that's the thing that keeps them from quitting is they know they're going to have to do it and they're scared about that. It's the unknown. Any advice of people out there who are going to listen to this and go, I've got a problem and I know I need to quit, but I'm afraid of this window, because that's the hardest part when you're most susceptible to, that whatever it is going to take whatever it is away.
So what I would say to that is, it's going to be hard. Life is hard. We have to choose our hard. It's hard to stay in your addiction. It's hard to lose your family. It's hard to lose your possessions. It's hard to become homeless. It's hard to have people think of you as a liar. It's hard to not have relationships with your friends anymore because they can't trust you to keep your word or not steal their things. It's hard to end up in jail. It's hard to end up saying sorry so many times that people don't believe it anymore. That's really hard. 5 days of going through detox is also hard. But you know what? Life is hard, and there are too many people out there who try to sugarcoat this shit and say that there's an easy way. There's not an easy way. And people should stop saying there is an easy way.
Anything to help?
Any of it. It's hard to grow old, creaking around, feeling like you can hardly get up off of the couch without help from someone. And it's hard to work out. You choose your hard in life. You choose your hard. It's all hard. So yeah, detox
Yeah.
is hard. Treatment is hard. But if you actually want to make progress in the world, you want to
Gotta
make
do it.
progress in your life, we do hard things. The difference is if we do the hard things that actually end up benefiting us, then the result of that is a positive result. It builds esteem. It builds self-esteem. Other people saying nice things about you does not build self-esteem. When you do hard shit and you accomplish it and you beat something, do something you didn't think you could do, that's what builds this inside of you. So you got hard things to do either way. You might as well do the hard things that end up making you feel better about yourself in the long run.
Yeah. Man. So you do your detox, you write through. That's interesting. I didn't even know they would let you bring a guitar to like a rehab facility for, like some that I guess maybe you see. I think the only thing I've seen is like VH1's with Bob Forrest and whatnot,
Sure. Yeah.
Celebrity Rehab.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's pretty cool that they let you do that, to have the guitar and
Yes.
to be able to write. But also, um, I played guitar for 10 years straight. Had this bad, terrible relationship thing go on, and I put it down for a long time. I've picked it up here and there, but what was it like picking the guitar back up again, and how did you feel about it? And yeah.
Yeah, it was totally different this time around. Like I said, I thought that I would just come there and like, play some sing-along covers that I knew and just pass the time, but it literally became the conduit for the spiritual experience that was necessary if you follow the 12-step program or many of the programs that are out there.
Uh-huh.
It's not necessarily the big G word God, but some sort of having some
Yeah.
sort of spiritual attachment, some sort of spiritual experience. So it was different for me than anything from before because I was connected to something very real, and I
Mm.
started to see that writing about these experiences was changing me. It was helping me to process and work through all of those traumas and all of those things we talked about it early on, these struggles that we've been through. We get to choose if we're going to be a victim to these
Yeah.
things or if we're going to use those as victim or victory over these things. So I started to use all of these things as a way to heal, as a way to communicate,
Yeah.
and it was healing me. And the other really interesting thing was when I shared it with the other guys that were in my unit, I was helping to heal them too. They're like, I've been through this. 2 or 3 different guys
Hmm.
came to me writing poems after I showed them what I had written, and that led to me creating a music program that I brought back to treatment centers since then, and other ways that I've been of service. But to come back to the point, my experience with writing music before treatment and after treatment were completely different animals. I was very surface level writing that I was doing before I went to treatment. When I came out of treatment or when I was in treatment, I was writing about my experiences, my struggles,
Hmm.
my traumas, my loss, and people really connected with it. I made my first album called Softer Scene. I came out of treatment, put the album together, released it, had some decent success with it. Had one song that did really well.
Uh-huh.
The recovery community at large really embraced what I was doing, and it turned into a new career. I started touring, and I was also doing speaking events, speaking about my experience in addiction and recovery, and doing a combination of sort of a VH1 storytellers kind of
Uh-huh.
thing, of speaking about my experiences, weaving it into the songs that I had written. And like I said, that turned into me creating a music program that I took into treatment centers around the country, where I showed other people how they could use songwriting and creativity to work through their own traumas. That led to me starting a foundation where I would raise money to create music programs and voice lessons for people in early recovery, as a way to have an outlet that challenged them to do something outside of their comfort zone and build, coping skills in the new life in recovery.
Hmm.
That led to getting a deal with Sony, creating a band, and making an album for Sony in 2019 with my new band, and having it all filmed as a documentary. Uh,
Oh,
and
man, that is.
and yeah,
I
so
well, did you? I gotta ask this because this is something that's when you played music as a young person, like you thought you loved music, but what was it like to fall in love with it again if you fell out of love? Or did you ever look back and go, this is a different level of love, or I thought I loved music then, but no, I love or the ability to play, that dichotomy of it.
yeah, I think that the love was always there,
Uh-huh.
but the purpose behind the music was different.
Got it.
When I was younger, it was I was creative and I loved writing and being in a band, but it was very much like, partying. I
Yeah.
very much wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to travel the world. I was still in my addiction, and I wanted that female attention that I didn't get from my mother. All these things that I now understand after all the therapy that I've done, all of the things that I've learned in my recovery.
Hmm.
I That was what was different. Was before I was doing it for the wrong reasons. When I came out and started writing again, I was doing it because it was my own way to heal, but then as I shared it with others, I saw that it was something that was really, truly helping others. And this is another one of the important tenets of the 12-step recovery program, is that you have to give away what has been so freely given to yourself. So being of service, giving away what was given to you. And I saw that music was a great way for me to be able to do that as well. So all of a sudden, this gift that I was given was something that was healing me, but also providing purpose, because I could go out and share it with others and truly help other people. So it was a completely different form of expression, a different type of love, a different motivation and purpose
Hmm.
behind the desire to create and put it out into the world. It was very different after treatment versus before.
Yeah. So one of my Kyle Smith, this guy right here, ex-heroin addict. Um, he he's not signed, but I think the band's been together. They've been 8 years. They do it self-funded, but they've
Nice.
gone from a Tacoma and a trailer to a 12 passenger transit with the trailer,
Awesome.
bigger shows. And I did the VIP a couple years ago, met some great people. His music got me through some of the hardest times of my life, as I was quitting drinking and all that. And just overall, kind of like a reggae rock. Um,
Nice.
ah, but so yeah, his, you know, that purpose for him to go out, it's almost like you can tell that it's a grind, and especially to compete with the bigger national acts. And
Yeah.
a lot of people don't understand that, because what being a musician is, you think, oh, all the this and that, the other, but it's like, okay, maybe you're getting to somebody's house at 2 or 3 in the morning and you got to get up at 8 because you got to drive 6 hours. Then you're going to
Yep.
load in at 3:30 or 4, sound check. Then you got VIP at 6, and then you got the show at 7, and then you're waiting for people after. And it's this nonstop grind. And especially if you're doing it without like a label support or
Yeah.
anything like that. And it really has to be for the love of kind of
Yes.
what you said, not necessarily the music, but what he's been given, that he's freely giving actively as he tours to others, because yeah, I know at my age you see Guns N' Roses, Metallica. Like my first show was Metallica opening for Guns N' Roses on the Use Your Illusion tour in Dallas. So that whole what you thought of being a rock star back then,
Yeah.
um,
Different.
is different, and the motivations kind of behind it. You see, it's like the women, the fame, the money. But as I got older and I follow him and whatnot, it's like you really for the right reasons if you're going to have longevity and
Mm-hmm.
purpose and you want your music to come across. And we're in an interesting space where, like for podcasting, is easier. You don't have to do this crazy thing you used to have to move to LA or whatever and hope to get signed and all that.
Yeah.
And you can do this self-funded stuff. But, like anything else, it is possible, but it's going to be hard, even like podcasting. But if you love it and you really want to take, like this conversation, whether it's a music conversation, poetry, art, whatever it is that's yours that you can give, you got to do it. And we live in a time that it's more possible than ever. And, for that, I'm grateful. But what else? Wellness visionary. So you start giving away your music or you're setting up programs, doing all this. What else outside of music are you doing?
So 2019 was the deal with Sony, but it really, honestly, the life that we had was very similar to one you just explained for your friend there. It was a small van with the gear loaded in the back, and what you said, you're sleeping in cheap hotels,
Air
getting there two,
mattresses.
3 in the morning, and getting back up at 7, 8, 9 a.m. depending on if you have to drive 4, 5, 6 hours to get to sound check, and doing the same thing day after day. So it's not the way that Guns N' Roses and Metallica travel the world. That's
And you have
that's
a
for sure.
child.
Yeah, but
And
that
that,
being said, we made the album in 2019. Did a bunch of press for it. The album was being released the first day of our national tour, which was, I want to say, it was February 3rd of 2020. We toured the country, all down through the South, across up through the West Coast from LA all the way up to Seattle, back down all through Texas, up through the South, ended up on the East Coast early March, got home, and it was about a week later that COVID shut the world down.
mm,
Yeah. So perhaps the worst time in the history of the world to release your first major label album and tour, and then everything shut down. I was also doing speaking events
mhm.
for addiction recovery,
Meeting. Did you do any
conventions.
sponsoring, anything like that?
Yeah, I've sponsored a number of guys, a lot of things like that. But I got home and everything I was doing to make a living, I couldn't do anymore. I wasn't doing speaking events. I wasn't touring. None of those things were happening. And I had to figure out what I was going to do next. And we're all sitting home. And while we're all sitting home waiting and thinking about what we're going to do next, I got hit with what I thought was a stomach bug, horrible. What I thought was, maybe the stomach flu or food poisoning. And you remember early in COVID, you didn't go to the hospital. It was everyone was these big hazmat suits with 4 masks on that were causing
Hmm.
scars in their face. It was The Walking Dead. You didn't go anywhere near a hospital. But as the days passed, I was again just laying in bed in horrible stomach pain day after day. After 7 days of that, I went to urgent care. They said, "Get your ass to the hospital right away." I
Wow.
went there, found out I had colitis, which was a massive bacterial infection in my colon. And it took many rounds of antibiotics, very strong, heavy antibiotics, which didn't completely kill the problem, but it completely destroyed my gut biome
Oh,
and got rid of all of the good stuff in my gut. Didn't get rid of all the bad stuff. Later on, I found out there were a number of other things which were causing what is known as gut dysbiosis. And so this led to leaky gut and things getting into my system, perforation in the gut lining, which allowed large enough particles to get into my system that
became septic.
my immune system would say, "This is not supposed to be here, red alert." Immune system goes off like crazy, causes massive inflammation. I don't know what's going on here. I just leave the hospital. I think I'm fine. And then I start falling apart. My Achilles gets pulled. I'm in a boot for that. That makes my hips start hurting, inflammation here, there. My back goes out, one thing after the other. I just start falling apart. 6 months earlier, I'm jumping around on stage around the country. I don't understand what's going on at this point. I'm in my late 40s. I go to regular doctors. They want to give me steroids, put me on prescriptions, or even worse, tell me I'm just getting old, to which I'm like, that's fucking bullshit. 6 months ago, I'm jumping around on stage. Now I'm creaking around like an old man. This doesn't make sense. They didn't have the answers for me. Now, I say this on any podcast that I do. I am not, the highlights never see this. They just see me shitting on the standard medical practice. I'm not shitting on it. If you get in a car accident, go to a doctor. If you have, a broken bone, or you have other traumatic issues that happen, any of these things, go to the hospital, go to a doctor. They are great for trauma. They are great for triage. They are not trained in nutrition, and they don't have great protocols in place for chronic inflammation and chronic pain. They are trained to manage symptoms and give you medications to manage those symptoms. That's what they're trained for if you speak to them, and love them for that. But they were not able to help me with the pain and the inflammation that I was suffering from. So I went the holistic route. I began to explore other forms of reducing the inflammation. I learned that my diet was terrible. I was consuming seed oils. I was consuming massive amounts of dairy, massive amounts of sugar. I started to do an elimination diet and then add things like turmeric and things like that, other anti-inflammatory foods to my diet. And it helped to some degree. It started to reduce the inflammation, but it was not dealing with the underlying issue, which was the gut dysbiosis and the leaky gut syndrome as a result. So I went deeper as I got maybe 25% less inflammation. Then I started to have some diagnostic tests done that are done by functional medicine doctors that aren't done by your standard practice. Found out, did the stool test, the urine test, the blood test, everything. That's where we figured out I had the leaky gut syndrome. I had massive amounts of mold in my system. I had parasites. I had yeast that was rooted into my gut lining, causing the perforations that was letting this stuff get into my system. The overactive immune system had started to attack my thyroid with hypothyroid and Hashimoto's. All of these things were happening. And so I went to another functional medicine doctor who taught me about more supplements. So at this point, I had eliminated all sugar, all seed oils, all processed food, had gone to essentially a raw food diet or very dense in nutrient type of whole foods. I had gone back to eating grass-fed, grass-finished beef, bison, elk, things like that were very high in nutrient value. I had removed other certain foods from my system, really dialed in my nutrition. That helped a lot. And then I went to a new functional medicine doctor. Like I said, he got me on these other supplements. We did his detox protocol, which included infrared, red light, hyperbaric oxygen chamber, 3 different protocols of detox, lack of inflammation, and then sort of a recovery phase with the supplements he had me on. And after doing all of these different protocols with him, I finally came out the other end with basically where I'm at now at 54 years old, where I feel like I did in my 30s. The inflammation is gone. The chronic pain is gone. I feel amazing. And as I had mentioned before, a big part of my life in recovery has been about being of service to others. The documentary that was made that was originally about the making of my album with the record label, the producer ended up making more of a story of my life in addiction and then recovery. And the whole point of the story was how I've checked a lot of boxes in my life doing cool shit that a lot of people wish they could do in their life. Like all the dreams I had as a kid of being a rock star, being on a marquee, being on a magazine cover, signing autographs, walking red carpets. Like I did all of these things, but I was still miserable inside. I was not quite happy. The only thing that has truly ever filled me with joy and contentment is helping others wanting nothing in return. I've said it before. You can't do it selfishly thinking, okay, if I do that, then I'll get it in return, because paradoxically the universe knows and it says, no, you don't get it. You have to really get outside yourself, stop being a selfish piece of shit, and really want to help someone else. And by doing that, you get something that there's no other way that you will get. You get peace, you get equanimity, you get happiness. It is a transformative experience. And I know this from experience. I don't just say it in some happy bullshit way of help others. It's going to be great. It truly, truly works. So after all these things happened and I healed myself through this holistic practice, I decided that this I decided I feel like more was downloaded to me at the right frequency, that this was my new mission, to build a wellness center and a new place where I could use all of these different holistic treatments that I had found that so few people know about, where they can truly come and actually heal in ways that God love the Western standard allopathic medical system, but it's just not set up to heal people with some of the ailments that they have. So our center is going to hopefully be able to help people with some of those things. I have to be very careful how I say it
Yeah.
because the FDA doesn't like you to. I'm not trying to heal, prevent, or cure any diseases or illnesses. Please make sure you see your general practice practitioner, MD, to have them diagnose you for anything. All rights reserved. Any other waivers that I have to sign or say.
I used to manage two
personal,
clinics.
So that's where I'm at and how I got to what changed in COVID was massive infection or massive inflammation from an infection, massive chronic pain that system was just going to try to figure out a way to manage my decline. Instead, what I found was a way to actually cure myself and incline rather than manage a decline. I feel better now than I did 10 years ago, and I truly feel like I will continue to feel better and reduce the effects of aging more and more over the next 10, 20, 30 years of my life.
Man. So kind of what is your at 54
Yes.
to do some of this stuff? Like what's your kind of give us a little bit of your routine, like some of the things you do on a daily basis.
All right. I'm going to say this. I'm one of those crazy biohacker guys. So you can get 90% of these benefits doing a fraction of what I do. But I have a 3-hour morning routine. I get up at 6 o'clock that in order to be ready to be there at 9 o'clock. It includes I have a red light panel at home. I start the day with a red light panel on my body, help me wake up and also to upregulate me at the cellular level to increase my energy. Also throw on a red light cap to try to keep as much of this hair as I can. I use this device called a pulsetto, which is a vagus nerve stimulator. It helps to reduce your morning levels of cortisol and stress. That's what I start for 20 minutes in the morning. Have some mineralized water with a couple pinches of salt. Then I have some black coffee. I get up from there. I move on to the next stage where I take about 50 supplements with some more water. And then I set a hydrogen water for 10 minutes, drink a bottle of hydrogen water. Then I get out a few syringes, different kind of syringes. And I take a few peptides. I come out of that. I go and I do an Epsom salt mineral bath for about 15, 20 minutes. Get myself ready from there. Then I go down to the gym. I do 15 to 20 minutes of cardio to loosen myself up. Then I do another probably 30 minutes of flexibility and mobility training. Come back from that. And after that, I do another 20 minutes in front of a red light machine where I also have on headphones, and I do some meditation, and I do a priming practice that I learned from my dude, Tony Robbins, and finish that off. And that's just about 3 hours. Then I break my intermittent fast from the day before, usually with a little bit of protein, and then followed by a wellness latte that I make from all pure whole ingredients, and start my day there. I'll also exercise later in the day to lift some weights, a huge part of longevity, at least 2 or 3 times a week. I'll do my best to lift weights. I had a back injury recently that has kept me from doing that too much. So I'm a little bit skinnier than I like to be, but I have to be kind with myself there. But that's my morning routine. And then beyond that, I've been very focused on the wellness center, but once that's open, we're going to have infrared sauna, cold plunge. I try to cold plunge a lot. Great for dopamine, norepinephrine, melatonin, boosting your collagen, all kinds of great things with the shock proteins as well. I want to get too deeply into that. Infrared sauna. I'll still do the hyperbaric oxygen chamber. I do a lot. I invest a lot, but it's the same thing of investing in your retirement in other ways. We need to invest. Because when I hit 70, 80 years old, I'm not going to be one of those guys who's creaking around and can't go and travel the world. I plan on being as strong and vital as I am now, 80 years old, 90 years old, 100. In fact, the good Lord could take me any minute. That's not the point. I have no attachment to it, but my goal is I fully believe I'm going to live to 120 and live long and strong straight through, not some guy creeping around in a wheelchair at 120. I mean, strong and vital until then. We are the first generation ever to have access to the technology and treatments necessary to be able to truly extend our lives by 10, 20, 30, 40 good years. And I intend on doing everything in my power to be one of those people who live long and strong.
Yeah, my wife, well, actually, as a family, we did live in caregiving for a 97-year-old veteran, and he ended up becoming immobile because of rehab, because of the Western medicine system. He was in there for bursitis, and guess what? When you're in rehab for bursitis, that doesn't necessarily call for ambulation. And at 97 years old, when you don't walk often, it doesn't take very long before you can't walk at all
Yeah.
and are unable to ever get it back. But with the wellness center, what kind of offerings are you going to have there? So, like, what is it going to have? Like gym equipment, red light stuff, or is it going to be more consultative, where somebody comes in and they talk with practitioners and do the tests, kind of like some of
Yeah.
the
So
testing?
we will have the functional medicine doctor who really helped cure me. He's actually
Hmm.
going to be coming in and consulting from there. So he'll have an office there. We will be doing some consulting for functional medicine and for nutrition, but I'm gonna have seven private contrast therapy suites. So you get a room, you go in there, it has a infrared sauna, a shower, and a cold plunge. So you have that room for an hour. Done that at a few centers around here. Love it. It's amazing. I've never found anything in 1 hour that has more health and wellness benefits than an hour in a contrast therapy room, 20 minutes in the infrared sauna, shower off, 3 to 5 minutes in the cold plunge, repeat that 3 times in the hour. I won't go down the list of all of the benefits,
Hmm.
but it's truly amazing. You do that a few times a week. Studies have shown 40% reduction in all causes of mortality. Like if there was a drug out there that they say, if you take this drug, there's a 40% less chance of you dying of anything, it would be the most popular drug in the world. Well, I have it at the wellness center. Just invest an hour a day into it. Anyway, those rooms would be there. I also have a recovery room where we'll do IV drip treatments. We'll do
Hmm.
some of the like lymphatic compression therapy, the leg compression system, some other little detox offerings, also red light face masks for collagen buildup and things like that. Also going to have a hyperbaric oxygen chamber there. And also going to have another room where we do some other very, very intense red light therapies. One fusion of a PEMF mat and a red light panel, which the giant panel just came in today. Super exciting to see it. But a combination of pulse electromagnetic field work, which is just tremendous benefits that I've found from 20 minutes on a PEMF mat. Lay on the PEMF mat, you have this very, very strong specified frequencies and levels of red light penetrating you. Massive benefits from that. We have a Rife machine, which is one that tunes the frequencies, tunes your cellular frequencies, does amazing things. We have that in there, and some other red light machines that have specific benefits, certain frequencies, and I can't think of the word right now, but at different intensities. That's where
Hmm.
frequency and intensity actually can kill parasites, can kill bacteria, do all kinds of things inside your lungs, bacteria inside of your stomach. That was one of the things that helped me tremendously with getting rid of some of the bad gut bacteria that I had. So it's going to be that. And then I have another treatment room that I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do with. It's kind of a build it and they will come, maybe some acupuncture,
Oh yeah.
maybe some Reiki, some other things like that, perhaps a chiropractor. I'm not quite sure yet. But to start, it'll be infrared sauna cold plunge, some and the diagnostic tests with the functional medicine guy, and then IV drip therapy, hyperbaric oxygen, and IV drip.
How's the reception been? So, an entrepreneur trying to launch a holistic um, wellness center. How has it been in doing your research kind of received? You probably live, well, I was going to say I'm about 80 miles from Dallas, Fort Worth. The nearest town to us is about 100,000 people, but we're also in Illinois. A little bit different demographic. I'm in Texas, very conservative. People are probably more prone to maybe trust in the healing of chicken fried steak than red light therapy in some places.
Well,
But
not if you're in Austin. If you're in Austin, this stuff is
yeah.
huge in
Oh, I
Austin.
know.
Yeah.
But it is there, but it's funny because think about in Texas, that's kind of the most liberal place in
Oh yeah.
Texas. And
I've
they're
done
like
I've done
all
a lot
the
of touring in Texas,
the
so
hippie
I
hippie
know
woo woo
the
shit.
difference between El Paso and Austin. I've done a lot of touring there, so I get it. I get what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah, we
very
lived
different.
9 years in Austin, my wife and
Yeah.
I, before moving back. But yeah, how's the reception been in terms of do you see more people? Because I come from a healthcare background. I managed two clinics. I spent time in a level one trauma center, and um, I fundamental I fundamentally think this idea of like, oh, if we're nice to people, they'll be more compliant and it equals less healthcare dollars and we have the most technology, but we don't live the longest and this whole healthcare debate and people know the system's messed up. People know it's wrong for these drug companies to be advertising their stuff at you because we're only one of a couple of countries that allow it. Um, we know it's broken and they have a lot of money, I guess, to buy up the spots to do it. But our way to really rebel against that is don't use their services. I mean, when I got laid off and I didn't have insurance because I didn't have a job, I went to cash pay. Going to cash pay meant that I would get less visits and this and that, the other. But that meant I was going to work towards getting healthier. I lost 64 pounds, went from nine prescriptions to one.
Nice.
Although now I have, 2 years off of alcohol and this other stuff. I get some blood work before I see my therapist and all that because I want to check everything, hormones, all of it. And other than being a little dehydrated, a few labs now, other things to worry about. It's like great, kind of like you strip your body of all the bad shit, get a new baseline, and now you're like, fuck, now I might have something else to deal with to correct. But coming from a different perspective, because I'm not the same person I was 64 pounds and drinking every day. Um, so what, we as consumers of products and services have to do the behaviors and seek out the treatments that we want counterculturally to the Western medical healthcare system that nobody fucking likes. Yet we continue. I mean, it's maybe because it's the perceived only option
Yeah.
because you kind of have to have insurance and they want
Hmm.
to require this and and all this other stuff they, unless you go to maybe some specialty places and a lot of it doesn't take the insurance, of course they don't want to fucking pay for the shit that works. Um, or, and maybe some companies now, I know Austin may have like Ambio Life Sciences or something, or Ways to Well, whatever it is, but a lot of companies that's private pay and it's you have to invest in yourself, whether it's a therapist, group coaching, a coach, accountability coaching, your health,
Yep.
supplements. You have to understand that you're going to pay for it, whether you're paying insurance and copays and deductibles. When I went to cash pay and started getting healthy, I was like, oh, you just, yeah, it's good to get a lab panel a couple times a year. It's okay for a sore throat or, not a sore throat. If you break something and you really need it, you have some trauma. Um, or you need something that they can direct you to. But most of all, like the clinic I had a gym. So, and I still go to that gym. At least they have a fitness facility. But yeah, we have to, as people and consumers, place the demand for that so it becomes more, whether it's affordable, more mainstream. Um, yeah, how are you seeing that out there as you try to start this up? Are you seeing more, and kind of what age brackets are consuming it more, or let's say more open to it? Because you would think maybe older people who want to live longer might be more open to it, but not necessarily because they might have trust issues with it, think it's hippie woo woo shit. And even though they don't like first world medicine, they continue to go. But yeah, who's consuming it? How are you seeing it? What's the reception?
Yeah, so those are a lot of great questions there. I'm fortunate to live in a community called Oak Park, which is the first suburb outside of Chicago,
Hmm.
but is a relatively affluent and very health conscious area. So there's people with enough expendable income to be able to afford to care for their health. And for a wellness center like this, you just have to be in an area like this in order to be able to succeed, because it does cost money to invest in your own wellness. Wish it was different, but this is the way things are currently, and this is what we're working with. So that being said, the people in the area who already know, who have invested in their own wellness journey, are super excited. And it is becoming a bit more mainstream. A lot of the big influencers are talking about infrared sauna and cold plunge. I don't know of any of like the top 1% type performers, whether it's entrepreneurs, athletes, influencers, any of them who don't do infrared sauna and cold plunge at the very minimum. So it has become something that a lot more people know something about, or they've heard about.
Hmm.
And my job has been to educate people on what it really means and what it can do for their wellness, and introduce them to these other treatments that we're going to be offering as well. As far as the response in the community, it has been phenomenal. What we've decided to do is offer a free session, one free session in the contrast therapy room, to anybody who signs up before we open our doors. And we're going to open, pretty sure our grand opening will be August 28th. But now for about 2 months, we've been doing pop-up events. We've been
Hmm.
doing a lot of promotion. We've been doing social media, inviting people to come out for a free contrast therapy session, an hour in the room with the infrared sauna and the cold plunge. As of today, we have signed up over 650 people to come
Oh,
out
wow.
and do a free session. So we've done a lot of work. You've probably been not one weekend where we haven't had an event. This past week, we had one last Saturday, and then on Monday, and then on Wednesday, and then on Friday, a huge party at an apartment complex. Got up the next morning, which was yesterday morning, Saturday, and did another one at the main FFC gym in the neighborhood. So it's been one event after the other, and it's been great. The community is very excited. We're getting to the point where people are like, oh yeah, I've heard of you guys. We can't wait for you to open. That is an amazing feeling for an entrepreneur who this idea came to me about a year ago, was like, I
Hmm.
love this. I believe in it, but my God, I'm putting like half of my net worth into this thing to make
Yeah.
it work. If it doesn't, I'm kind of screwed. And so to see this reaction now has been just such a great feeling of relief and like vindication, and knowing that this is something that people really want. And it's been across the board, from young people who are into wellness to people who are middle aged, and we've got a ton of people from the older end of the spectrum of as well, who are learning these amazing benefits. I was talking about, there was a study done in like the Norwegian countries,
Hmm.
where they all do sauna and cold plunge all the time. I believe it was a 20-year study that was done, and it's on the internet. It's easy to find, but they studied people who did that all the time versus a group of people who didn't. And over that 20-year period, they found that the people who did sauna and plunge 4 times or more per week 40% reduction in all causes of mortality, which I had mentioned, and then a 60% reduction in all types of heart and respiratory disease or vascular disease, and up to a 70% reduction in dementia and Alzheimer's.
Oh,
If there
I
was
need
a
to get in on
drug
that.
on the market that did that, it would change the world. But literally, come and sit in a contrast therapy suite 4 times a week, and you can have those kind of benefits, as well as a million others that I won't go into. People can look them up if they want. So as we've gone out and I've evangelized this, and the team that I'm working with, we've all learned to be able to explain these things to people when they come up to the booth. We've gotten just a ton of excitement, a ton of people who are totally committed to coming out and working with us to add a good 10, 20, 30 years to their life, and not just years where you're hanging on, but years where you are vital, you are strong, and you are truly living a good, beautiful, vital life.
What's been the most challenging part of taking on this journey? And then what's one unexpected benefit that you've something you never would have thought in a million years your life would have turned out this way, or this would have never happened had you kind of not pursued this passion of kind of fixing yourself and then trying to give it out to the world?
Yeah, I think some of the most beautiful things about it is how the people who are closest to me are taking advantage of it. My daughter sits on we have a PEMF mat at home. She sits on the PEMF mat at home with like the red light mask on, biohacking. She's always drinking a glass of water to make sure she's hydrated, and wants to, look, Daddy, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Other family members who are paying closer attention to their health are learning that there are so many answers outside of the allopathic healthcare system. Again, not shitting on that system. It's great for certain things and we need it, but for health, nutrition, and wellness, there are other avenues that we have to be educated. That's just a part of life. It's not going to be covered by insurance, but it's worth it. We are always told to invest in our retirement. This is a part of investing in your retirement.
Because
So
it's longer
doing
life.
that, yeah, and absolutely. So that has been one of the biggest rewards. What has been difficult is, like you, I am a perfectionist. I am somewhat OCD. I have a very, very high standard that I put on myself as to what I accept out of myself. And so I place those kind of expectations on everyone else as well. And so it's almost impossible for somebody who's, let's say, the drywall contractor as I'm building to have the same level of care and attention to detail as
Yeah.
me. Or, the person who is the vendor for this thing, or the guy who's making my sign, or, whatever it might be. I have to, building a business, and one that started from, constructing the space from nothing, I have to depend on hundreds of people who none of them are going to have the same degree of passion or attention to detail
They all
that
have
I
different
am.
levels of give a fuck.
Whew. And that is the hardest thing. The thing that gives me some sleepless nights. I don't have sleepless nights, but keeps me up for a while is that I have to anticipate when I give someone a task, what are all of the things that could go wrong because they don't care about it as much as I do? And how do I put guardrails on the things to make sure as few of those things
Actually
happen as
do.
possible? And it's exhausting. So that has been hard. Once we're open, it'll never go away, but there'll be far less of that. But that has been, over the last 8 months, the biggest challenge is having to just accept that a lot of other people are going to not ever live up to the level of expectation that I have for them.
And what are you doing to manage that mentally?
This is where my recovery program comes to my aid all the time. I'm looking at a little sticky note on my other computer screen that says, "Live in joy and have no attachments." The Buddha said that attachment is the root of all suffering. Within the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12-step program, there's a page called 417. On page 417, it says, "Acceptance is the answer to all my problems today." So what do? I have to have radical acceptance. I have to prepare as much as I can, but I have to have non-attachment to the results. I have to, rather than, when I get miserable, is when I get into the illusion that I control things, that I run things, and I've had enough success in my life influencing things that it takes nothing for me to get back under that illusion that I run shit or that I can control anything. And as soon as I get there, all of a sudden I'm perturbed, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, and I'd be like, hey, you know what you're doing right now? You are living in an illusory world where you think that you control shit, and you
Yeah.
don't. The only thing you control is this inner world. So if you want to be a control freak, how about being a control freak for what's going on inside of you and work through this? Because the only person that's making miserable is you. Everybody else is going to keep doing what they're doing. So why are you doing this to yourself?
And nobody else cares that you
No,
feel bad. And trust me, half the people that fuck you over, they're not even gonna feel bad about it either.
no.
You feel, and you're sitting there like going,
Yeah.
dwelling on it. What's one thing I gotta do is I always say when I have those bad moments, I'm trying to shorten the distance of pivoting, get off the X, as
Yeah.
they would put it in military terms. If you're getting fired at, you need to fucking move, get off the X. And
Yeah.
when I come down on myself, it's about, it's so easy to do professionally because we fucking train for it. It's like, you train for everything. When I worked in the emergency room, you can't dwell on something because somebody's life depends on it. Or if 12
Yeah.
traumas come in at once, there's no time to fuck around. But, and we encourage that in the professional world. It's a sign of a good professional. Yet in our personal lives, I made this reference and, from the time we're kids, go sit in the corner and think about what you did. Go to your room, think about what you did. We put people in solitary confinement. Rightfully so. Some people fucking deserve to be there. If you murdered a bunch of people, you're where you deserve to be. But there are some people who do minor things and get a different level of punishment. And sometimes that can make it difficult to move on if there's no encouragement to move on. But what is a good technique you use to pivot? Like if you feel like you're getting stuck on something or something's irritating you a little too much on one of these projects, whether it's a sign, a vendor, um, how do you pivot quickly so you don't let it ruin any more moments?
Do
Do you pinch
exactly what
yourself?
you do exactly what you did this morning, man. I go for a walk.
Yeah.
That's it. Get outside. If it's cold, that cold air on your face. If it's hot, it's the sun on your face. I have a beautiful park that's right behind the building that I live in. I'll go outside. I'll do a lap or two around the park. I'll sit on a park bench. It breaks you out of whatever bullshit that you've been sitting in. It's a new environment. There are all kinds of therapeutic benefits, but every time I get there, I will do that. If I come back and it's still happening, there's a few books that I have that I can read, a few pieces of wisdom, a little bit of Alan Watts or some other sort of Buddhist literature. I find a lot of comfort in some of the early teachings, enlightened thoughts of the Buddha with just removing attachment as much as possible. So those are some of the things that I'll do to break the cycle if I need to.
Attachment. I was like, that was the thing about when I was in the Navy. Like you live light, travel fast, like a
Yeah.
musician. It's
Hmm.
probably like maybe that's the attractive, maybe that's why you feel so happy, even though it's a grind and the money's not always there, is that because you have less attachment.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why you're like, when I had the least, I was the happiest
Hmm.
because, it was like, we didn't even have TV. We just watched DVDs, or I had, Stevie Ray Vaughan live at El Macumbo on VHS, Blind Melon live at the Galaxy. I'd watch those on VHS, play guitar, go to college, cook, and exercise.
Yep.
Didn't need much, didn't want for much. Life was very simple. Um, and even though I made like very little money, like 12 or 13 bucks an hour, for some reason I was still able to have a lot of money because I didn't do a lot. I didn't want for much.
Yep.
But yeah, it's interesting. Maybe it's that attachment piece of it. But what's one last thing you'd like to leave the audience with, if you could leave them with anything?
I'm gonna leave you with this. You talked about your first concert being Metallica opening for Guns N' Roses. All right, I'm a few years older than you, and I got the benefit of going to this concert when I was in ninth grade, which would have been 1987, I think. I was living in Colorado at the time, and I saw, for my first concert, Metallica opening for Ozzy Osbourne, and this was with Cliff Burton still on bass. Yeah, man. That summer they went to Europe and he died in the accident. But my first concert was them opening the Master of Puppets tour, opening for Ozzy, and it was with Cliff Burton. Still a couple of months left in his life, and I got to see him. That's pretty cool, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, dude.
It's some of those bands like I never got to see Sublime. I never got to see Blind Melon with Shannon Hoon, but I did get to see Blind Melon when they came back through Austin with Travis Warren and all the original members. And I mean, Travis Warren's a great vocalist, and he's got that same raspy voice as Shannon. And because that Blind Melon Soup's kind of how I still have the tab book that I learned to play guitar a little bit.
Do you want me to?
And the Black Crows.
Do you want me to make you hate me more?
Yeah, please.
I used to know Shannon Hoon a little bit. And me and him one time, before a show, we traded T-shirts. He liked the shirt I was wearing. It was in town within their first tour, and we went off to lunch. And afterwards, we traded T-shirts.
Richard Shannon Hoon. I think he's got like the same birthday or something as one of my ex-girlfriends. That's how I remember. But
he was a cool guy. He was a good guy. I've hung out with him a few times. Was a good man. But that being said,
yeah. Well,
any other last words? I think that kind of has been great to be here talking with you. We went a little bit off to the left on the end there, but
no, it's all, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, man.
There is no format. The format is it going to add value somewhere to someone? It's about what's the story of the guy next to you sitting at the counter at the Waffle House. It's named after the Waffle House. So I appreciate your time. I will email and all the stuff and when it's going to come out. But yeah, thank you for sharing your time with me today. And I'm interested in what you're doing and interested to follow and learn more. And as I always tell everybody, our call to action is go out and be the person that you would want to meet.
Love it. Well, I just want to say, if anybody doesn't want to, learn anything else about me or get to know me, jamalker.com is the way you can find me on that website. You can find all the social media, the music, all the other stuff there. And beyond that, Richard, I just want to say thank you very much for having me on your show. I appreciate it very much.
Awesome. Have a good one.
I do. Peace.
Asteroid of fear.